Chapter 204. A strand of saber essence decimates the sea beast. At last, human figures meet our sight. The voice of Lin Fei resonated in tranquility. Unfortunately, these figures were merely chi condensation cultivators. As for language and scripts, they seemed akin to those of Great Chan. Perhaps this was somewhat peculiar. But upon closer contemplation, it appeared to fall within the bounds of reason. After all, this was a world of cultivation. Possibly, ages ago, Great Chan had been connected with the outside world. Now, these were trivial concerns. What mattered was that Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin had finally encountered others. And these were chi condensation cultivators no less. This implied that there were places suitable for cultivation. Undeniably, these chi condensation cultivators wouldn't be able to cultivate on the sea. Retrieve. Lin Fei withdrew the sky-reaching tower. Simultaneously, he also pulled back the saber momentum. Instantly, the 5 chi condensation cultivators began to gasp for air vehemently. The oppressive aura exerted by Lin Fei had been overwhelmingly terrifying. Could this be the legendary martial saint? Indeed, in legend. Because for a very long time, they hadn't seen a martial saint. The Fairy Mist Island housed martial artists. However, the martial saints were nearly extinct. From whence do you cultivators hail? Lin Fei inquired. With due respect, Senior, we are cultivators from the Zhao family of Fairy Mist Island. Fairy Mist Island. A flicker passed through Lin Fei's gaze. Judging by the name, it seemed to be an island. The chi condensation cultivators exchanged glances. Subsequently, one of them gritted his teeth and cautiously queried, "Dare I ask, Senior, are you a martial saint?" A glint flashed in Lin Fei's eyes. For a moment, even without the exhibition of the saber momentum, the inherent oppression of a martial saint was not something these chi condensation cultivators could match. More so, Lin Fei was no ordinary martial saint. I am indeed a martial saint. Are there no martial artists on your Fairy Mist Island? Lin Fei's question hung in the air with an aura of calm. He had just extinguished the 10 immortal sects in Great Chan. The enmity between him and the chi cultivators was far from trivial. Even before, in Great Chan, the relationship between martial artists and chi cultivators had been fraught with tension. If the situation on Fairy Mist Island was similar, then Lin Fei would have to consider whether to annihilate these chi condensation cultivators. After all, since they had encountered chi cultivators here, it implied the proximity of Fairy Mist Island. A bit more searching, and they would certainly find it. They didn't even need these chi cultivators to guide them. Senior, we do have martial artists on Fairy Mist Island. Perhaps the Senior has misunderstood. On Fairy Mist Island, martial artists and chi cultivators coexist. However, it has been a long time since a martial saint was born on Fairy Mist Island, hence the query. May I ask, Elder, have you traveled across the sea? Indeed, I, Lin, have drifted in the vast sea for several months. This is the first encounter with living beings. Lin Fei did not conceal his identity. This was something that simply couldn't be hidden. Even these chi cultivators had discerned at a glance that Lin Fei had arrived across the sea. Upon hearing this, the 5 chi cultivators exchanged glances. A hint of shock shimmered in their eyes. He really had journeyed across the sea. Moreover, he had drifted on the sea for several months. Several months. It should be noted, once one strayed away from the vicinity of Fairy Mist Island and slightly ventured into the outer sea, terrifying sea beasts would be encountered. Even the lofty Foundation establishment true persons would more likely face calamity than fortune. To have endured 3 days' time was deemed a feat for top-tier Foundation establishment true persons. And now, these 2 martial saints who had journeyed across the sea could actually drift for several months at sea. This was truly unimaginable. The 5 chi cultivators went falls. Under such circumstances, it could only indicate that the 2 martial saints before them were incredibly powerful, even beyond their imaginations. For a moment, the hearts of the 5 chi condensation cultivators burned with excitement. Seniors, since you have journeyed across the sea, you must be seeking the Tao, right? Our fairy mist island occasionally hosts visitors from the outer sea who are on a quest for Tao. Seniors could first come to Fairy Mist Island, rest a while, and understand the situation. And then make plans. How about it? The Chi cultivators took the initiative to invite Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin. Inviting us, what's in it for you? Lin Fei asked straightforwardly. After all, this was not Great Chan. For Lin Fei, everything here was unfamiliar. The 5 chi cultivators felt a bit abrupt, but when they thought that Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin had journeyed across the sea and might have encountered countless dangers, being vigilant was quite justified. Seniors, if we say there are no benefits, you probably wouldn't believe us. To be honest with you, both of you are martial saints and there are martial arts families on Fairy Mist Island. They are currently desperate for martial saints. If we bring the 2 martial saints back to Fairy Mist Island, then those martial arts families will certainly seek us out. As Chi condensation cultivators, we desire some resources and we believe those martial arts families will certainly give them. After all, they are all former martial saint families, each with deep resources. These Chi cultivators didn't dare hide anything. They basically laid everything out on the table. There are martial saint families on Fairy Mist Island. Yes, there are indeed martial saint families, and more than one. Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin exchanged a glance. Now they had journeyed across the sea and had been drifting on the vast ocean for several months. Wasn't it to seek the Tao and hope to make further progress in martial arts? Since there were martial saint families on Fairy Mist Island, it was natural to go take a look. Even if there was no breakthrough in martial arts, they would also know the direction for a breakthrough in martial arts. All right, we will follow you back to Fairy Mist Island. Lin Fei agreed. Great. Now, even if we can't find the black swine beast, there might still be hope for our foundation establishment pills. This trip wasn't in vain. The faces of the 5 chi condensation cultivators all held a glimmer of joy. Martial saints. It is believed that the martial saint families on Fairy Mist Island would each go crazy. And those martial saint families, each was exceedingly wealthy. In order to meet a martial saint, giving them some resources was nothing. However, just as they were about to leave, suddenly someone exclaimed, "Look, the black swine beast. The black swine beast has been found. Isn't our trip out to sea for the purpose of hunting the black swine beast? Now that we are here, and it's so close, it would be a pity not to hunt it." For a moment, the 5 chi condensation cultivators were somewhat hesitant. Seniors, our trip out to sea was specifically to hunt the black swine beast. This relates to whether we can obtain the foundation establishment pills. So, please wait a moment, seniors, let us hunt this black swine beast first, then we'll take you back to Fairy Mist Island. In the end, these Chi condensation cultivators decided to hunt the black swine beast first. Lin Fei glanced at the black swine beast. He had seen this kind of sea beast. Its strength was not worth mentioning. Even a foundation establishment cultivator could handle it. Lin Fei was in a hurry to go to Fairy Mist Island. So, he lightly said, "You want to hunt this sea beast? Forget it, consider it as a greeting gift." Lin Fei flicked his finger. Whoosh! A wisp of saber energy flew out. In an instant, this wisp of saber energy grew with the wind and it transformed into a heavenly saber several tens of meters high. Slash! The sky saber fell instantly. It slashed on the black swine beast. Splurt! The black swine beast let out a miserable cry. Almost without the power to resist, it was cut into 2 halves by the heavenly saber. Blood dyed the surrounding seawater red. The air was filled with a rich scent of blood. The 5 chi condensation cultivators were all looking at Lin Fei with an incredibly shocked expression. With a casual wave, he killed the black swine beast. Even a foundation establishment true person couldn't do it this easily and casually. And they knew martial artists, especially martial saints, excel in close combat. As for Lin Fei, thousands of meters away, his true essence flew out, easily killing the black swine beast. This was beyond their understanding of martial artists. They felt incredibly shocked. At this moment, perhaps they could more intuitively understand what it means to drift at sea for months. Chapter 205. Cross the sea to seek Tao. We are all seekers of Tao. When Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin finally set foot on land, both of them breathed a sigh of relief as if a huge weight had been lifted off their shoulders. Drifting at sea for months, exotic beasts lurking all around, having to be on high alert at every moment. Every moment, their minds were stretched taut. Life during those times was not easy. Senior, this is Fairy Mist Island. Most of the people on the island are chi cultivators. They are connected to dozens of nearby islands, forming the overseas Immortal Islands. There are no powerful sects here, so calling it an Immortal Island is just a name we give ourselves. In reality, on the ancient continent, we are called overseas loose cultivators, lacking resources. Even sects are reluctant to come to us. Zhao Minyu said with a bitter smile. Lin Fei knew the names of these 5 chi condensation cultivators. Among them, Zhao Minyu was the leader. Zhao Minyu had reached the 12th level of chi condensation at great perfection. He had taken 2 foundation establishment pills. Unfortunately, both attempts at foundation establishment failed. In the Zhao family, once someone reached the 12th level of chi condensation at great perfection, the family would grant a foundation establishment pill. Some people could make it in one leap, successfully establishing their foundation. But for most people, one foundation establishment pill is simply not enough for foundation establishment. This was the case for Zhao Minyu. Later, he tried all sorts of ways and used several years to finally purchase a second foundation establishment pill. However, he still failed to establish his foundation. So, this time, Zhao Minyu took the risk to hunt the black swine beast at sea in exchange for a foundation establishment pill. Now it seems that Zhao Minyu was lucky. Not only did he meet Lin Fei, he even obtained the black swine beast. Perhaps this time he could get 2 foundation establishment pills. Ancient continent. So, there's another big continent. Of course, the ancient continent is boundless. Specifically, Senior, if you stay on Fairy Mist Island for a while, you'll naturally understand. Lin Fei nodded. Upon arriving at Fairy Mist Island, he broadened his horizons. There were so many chi cultivators here. Almost everywhere were chi cultivators. Of course, there were also ordinary people. However, these ordinary people were not ordinary at all. Because they practiced martial arts. And unlike Great Chan, the chi cultivators here seemed to not have that superior attitude towards martial artists. 2 seniors, we've arrived at the Zhao family. You 2 rest first, I'll go report to the family. Lin Fei nodded. The Zhao family was a chi cultivator family with 5 foundation establishments. In the entire Fairy Mist Island, they could be considered in the top 10. After Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin were received by a foundation establishment true person of the Zhao family. Both parties had a brief exchange. Under the arrangement of the Zhao family, Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin stayed with the Zhao family. And the 2, through the Zhao family members, as well as some books and notes, gradually came to understand Fairy Mist Island and the ancient continent. The ancient continent was a vast and boundless continent. On it, various sects stood tall. There were nations, sects, noble families, martial artists, chi cultivators, and so on. But basically, each area was controlled by a sect. For example, the Immortal sect and the Martial Arts sect. The martial arts sects here were not like those in Great Chan. These were true rulers that stand alongside the immortal sect. As for Fairy Mist Island, martial arts had declined. There used to be martial sage families. But in the past few centuries, not a single martial sage had emerged. Therefore, the whole of Fairy Mist Island was still dominated by chi cultivators. Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin only understand some of these generalities. But they knew, on the ancient continent, there is a higher level of martial arts, and that was enough. This indicated that their path of seeking the Tao had hope. As for specific martial sage techniques, or some martial arts secret books, on Fairy Mist Island, only a few martial sage families had them. Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin did not actively seek out those martial sage families. Instead, they waited quietly. After understanding some of the situations in the ancient continent and Fairy Mist Island, Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin both understood those martial sage families would definitely take the initiative to find them. A few days later, Zhao Minyu, with a face full of joy, came to find Lin Fei. Senior Lin, Senior Shen, the 8 martial sage families of Fairy Mist Island have sent people to find me. They hope to meet the 2 seniors. Originally, they were all prepared to come in person. But this involves some secrets of the martial sage families, and it's not quite convenient in my Zhao family. So, the 2 seniors need to make a move and go to the Shanguan family among the martial sage families. Lin Fei looked at Zhao Minyu and said calmly, the 8 martial sage families are quite generous. I suppose they've given you a lot of benefits. Zhao Minyu did not hide anything. A smile appeared on his face, and he respectfully responded, thanks to the 2 seniors, the 8 martial sage families have really put in a lot of effort this time. They have actually gathered 2 foundation establishment pills. As long as I can invite the 2 seniors, these 2 foundation establishment pills will be mine. It has to be said, the 8 martial sage families were indeed sincere. They gave the middleman Zhao Minyu 2 foundation establishment pills. Considering the current situation of the 8 martial sage families, these 2 foundation establishment pills were not easy to come by. And Zhao Minyu also did not hide anything. His attitude was very sincere. However, Zhao Minyu was a smart man. He knew that Lin Fei would definitely agree. Because Lin Fei was a seeker of the Tao. He crossed thousands of miles, crossed the sea, all for the sake of seeking the Tao. Lin Fei was a martial sage. So naturally, he sought the martial Tao. What Lin Fei wanted, only the 8 martial sage families had it. Lin Fei looked deeply at Zhao Minyu and nodded, 2 foundation establishment pills. I hope you can succeed in your foundation establishment. Let's go, lead the way. Zhao Minyu was overjoyed. So, he immediately led Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin away from the Zhao family. Fairy Mist Island, though it was an island, was actually quite large. At least, it should be a quarter the size of Great Chan. Otherwise, it would not be able to accommodate so many chi cultivators and ordinary people. Soon, the 3 arrived at the mansion of the Shanguan family. The martial sage family's mansion was also very impressive. After all, they had given birth to martial saints. But compared to the Zhao family, it seemed to have declined a lot. After all, the Zhao family was becoming stronger and stronger. They have 5 foundation establishment true people, and the family's power naturally grows day by day. On the other hand, once the martial sage families had not given birth to a martial sage, they would decline. Lin Fei was now a martial sage. He also gradually knew some differences between the martial Tao and the immortal Tao. For example, the immortal Tao required talent from the beginning. It excludes over 90% of people. The number of martial artists was large, and ordinary people could practice martial arts. Even the number of martial artists who had achieved innate was definitely more than that of chi cultivators. But when it came to the stage of martial sage, it was difficult. The difficulty was not exotic beasts. There were many exotic beasts in the sea. The martial Sate families themselves were storing exotic beast flesh and blood. True Qi perfection was not difficult. The real difficulty was martial Dao true intent. Martial Dao true intent to achieve perfection was too hard. If martial Dao true intent cannot achieve perfection, then one cannot establish a foundation and cannot become a martial saint. This is the same in Great Chan. In Great Chan, there were very few martial arts masters who could comprehend martial Dao true intent. As soon as Lin Fei and the others stepped into the mansion of the Shenguan family, swish! Dozens of gazers were focused on Lin Fei and Shen Liangsen. Lin Fei saw the 8 people in the lead. There was an exotic fragrance coming off their bodies. Their skin was like a baby's, free of dust and dirt. This is a characteristic of physical perfection. And True Qi had achieved perfection. But there is one point: martial Dao true intent had not achieved perfection. Even, there were many who have not achieved the transcendence of true intent. The worst few didn't even have martial Dao true intent. Obviously, these people were all martial arts grandmasters. But they were just True Qi perfection and physical perfection. They didn't lack exotic beast flesh and blood. For these innate martial artists, physical perfection was the easiest to achieve. Greetings to the 2 martial saints. The 8 people in the lead should be the so-called representatives of the 8 martial Sate families. Upon seeing Lin Fei and Shen Liangsen, all bowed respectfully. May I ask why the 2 martial saints have come to Fairy Mist Island? One of the martial arts masters asked in a deep voice. Lin Fei glanced at the 8 people and calmly said, I crossed the sea just to seek the Tao. Brother Shen and I are both seekers of the Tao. As soon as Lin Fei's words fell, the representatives of the 8 martial Sate families all showed expressions of joy. So, they are seekers of the Tao. After so many years, we finally have seekers of the Tao again. Ha ha ha, seekers of the Tao and martial saint at that, our 8 families have hope again. For a moment, the expressions of these 8 family representatives seemed to carry a hint of excitement. Chapter 206. The saber momentum erupts, intimidating the 8 great aristocratic families. Seeing how the representatives of the 8 great aristocratic families were so excited, Lin Fei and Shen Liangsen remained calm. Because they had learned some stories about seekers of the Tao during their few days on Fairy Mist Island. Whoever could cross the sea would usually arrive at Fairy Mist Island first. Those people were either top-tier foundation establishment true person or martial saints. They appear once every few hundred or even 1,000 years. But every time they appear, they bring great changes to Fairy Mist Island. Because these seekers of the Tao, their final achievements were not small. There were those who become Golden Core True Person and also those who have become Martial Sovereign. Even, there were those who have achieved even higher. For the 8 great martial Sate families, seekers of the Tao represented a guarantee. A guarantee that they could enter the sect. Senior martial saints, I believe you both are aware of the situation. Since you are seekers of the Tao, you are destined to climb to the pinnacle of martial arts. You must go to the martial arts sect. Such as martial saints like you too, those sects with profound martial arts, capable of climbing to the pinnacle of martial arts, usually don't accept. The only exception is the Ancient Origin sect. Ancient Origin sect's purpose is to accommodate all rivers. Different paths lead to the same goal. Even if it's a martial Sate, Ancient Origin sect will accept. But it needs a recommendation quota. This recommendation quota is not easy to find. Even if you two are martial saints, it won't be easy to get a recommendation quota. But our 8 great families on Fairy Mist Island have a recommendation quota. We recommend you 2 martial saints go to Ancient Origin sect and compete for the position of 18 Outer Gate elders. This is equivalent to the position of Inner Gate disciples. Once you become Outer Gate elders, each of you martial saints can recommend 5 disciples without exams, directly entering the Outer Gate of the Ancient Origin sect. Joining hands will benefit both, going separate ways will hurt both. I wonder what you two seniors think. The representatives of the 8 great aristocratic families did not beat around the bush but straightforwardly stated this matter. Joining hands will benefit both. Going separate ways will hurt both. Everything is out in the open. That is reasonable. You need martial saints and we need recommendation quotas. However, I have one condition. Your 8 great martial saint families must have collected a lot of martial arts, right? I need innate level saber techniques that can cultivate saber intent. The more the better. Lin Fei also proposed a condition. He did not choose martial techniques of the martial saint level, because there was no need. Only those major sects had techniques that could reach the level of martial sovereign. Besides, he wanted to enter ancient origin sect. Where would he need the common techniques of these martial saint families? But saber techniques were different. Each top-tier innate level saber technique, especially those that could cultivate saber intent, could increase Lin Fei's foundation in saber techniques. Lin Fei could find ways to let these top-tier saber techniques evolve saber momentum. When Lin Fei's saber momentum achieved transcendence, its power could increase countless times. Therefore, top-tier saber techniques were very important to Lin Fei. Saber techniques that can cultivate saber intent. This is not a problem. Our 8 great families have collected some top-tier saber techniques. The 8 great families also nodded. It was just some saber techniques. They could copy them and give them to Lin Fei. 2 martial saints, there is one more thing. Although you two are seekers of the Tao, we would like to know more about your strength. After all, there are many martial saints who want to enter ancient origin sect. If you don't have particularly strong power, it might not be easy to get into ancient origin sect smoothly. The 8 great families also made a request to understand the strength of Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin. This request is not excessive. How would you like to know? Of course, it's through a spar. Although we are not martial saints, we have achieved perfection in our physical bodies. And the martial arts we have learned are not weak. Even if it's a martial saint, the 8 of us can resist when joining forces. The 8 people finished speaking and turned their gazes to Lin Fei. I will only draw my saber once. At this time, Shen Liangxin stepped forward. He swept his gaze over the 8 people. Thank you, Senior, for your guidance. Therefore, the 8 martial grandmasters also exuded a strong momentum. Ultimate saber slash. Shen Liangxin slashed out with his saber. Suddenly, a saber light of thousands of meters cut through the sky like a dazzling rainbow. The 8 people were greatly shocked. 9 dragons dance. Eternal saber slash. Dragon Gate shadow. One by one, the martial grandmasters displayed their own martial arts. True Qi burst out, and even martial Dao True Intent also burst out. The 8 people joined hands, and their momentum reached its peak. It seemed like they could really resist a martial saint. Bang! The next moment, the saber light slashed down. The 8 grandmasters, each one of them shook. Their clothes were cut by the saber light. They looked very embarrassed. Clang! Looking at Shen Liangxin again. After slashing that saber, he had already sheathed his saber. The whole person was like an indifferent iceberg, silent and reserved. Senior Shen is really too strong. Even though he is a martial saint, this saber, Senior Shen, is even stronger than all the martial saints we have seen. And that saber intent, it simply reached an extreme sharpness. With just one saber, we couldn't resist it. Although the 8 grandmasters were shocked, they were very happy in their hearts. They used their recommendation quotas to send Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin to the ancient origin sect. The stronger Shen Liangxin and Lin Fei were, the happier they were. If both could enter the ancient origin sect, it might be the turning point for the 8 great families in recent centuries. Senior Shen's strength is amazing, even among the martial saints, he is a strong one. The 8 innate masters from the great families recognized Shen Liangxin's strength. So, their gazes turned to Lin Fei. "I wonder, Senior Lin, do you also want to spar with me?" Lin Fei spoke in a calm tone. Shen Liangxin had always kept a cold face. Like an ice sculpture, he remained silent. But now, his gaze swept over the people from the 8 great families. A hint of pity was revealed in his eyes. The people from the 8 great families didn't understand. They nodded and said respectfully, "We rudely asked for guidance from Senior Lin." Lin Fei's gaze was deep. Looking at the 8 innate masters in front of him, he spoke calmly, "A spar is fine, but don't draw your sabers. No one can draw their saber in front of me." Lin Fei's gaze fell on the 3 masters who used sabers. Out of the 8 innate masters, there were 3 saber users. They had even all comprehended saber intent. However, the saber intent had only reached transcendence, far from perfection. "Senior, although you are a martial sate, we haven't reached the point where we can't even draw our sabers." The 3 saber users had anger on their faces. Lin Fei's words made them feel as if they were being disrespected. So, they put their hands on the hilt of their sabers, trying to draw them. But the next moment, their expressions changed slightly. The sabers in their hands actually began to tremble violently. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't draw them. Even using their true chi didn't change anything. The sabers seemed to be tightly sucked by their sheaths. They simply couldn't draw their sabers. The 8 innate masters suddenly looked up. Their gazes were incredibly shocked as they looked at Lin Fei. Boom. The next moment, Lin Fei didn't hold back any longer. His saber momentum instantly exploded. Majestic and overwhelming, it pressed on the 8 innate masters. Immediately, the 8 innate masters, not to mention making a move, even moving a single step was extremely difficult. Without becoming a martial sate, in the face of Lin Fei's saber momentum, even making a move was a luxury. Saber momentum? It's actually saber momentum. Ha ha ha, Senior can actually comprehend saber momentum. Dao Seeker, this is a true Dao Seeker. For a moment, the 8 innate masters' expressions of immense shock appeared on their faces. Even their voices began to tremble with excitement. "Now, do we still need to spar?" Lin Fei stood with his hands behind his back. His gaze fell on the 8 grandmasters as he calmly asked. Chapter 207. Transformation, Saber Momentum Transcendence. Shenguan Family Mansion. Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin had both moved in here. After all, the Zhao family was a Qi cultivator family. It wouldn't be a long-term plan to stay at Zhao's. And Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin had already reached an agreement with the 8 great families. The 2 had officially become guest elders of the 8 great families. It could be said that they shared honor and disgrace now. So, Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin simply moved into the Shenguan family. They quietly waited for the 8 great families to arrange for their trip to the ancient origin sect. According to the arrangement of the 8 great families, they first needed to build momentum for Lin Fei. Yes, build momentum. They needed to publicize Lin Fei's status as a Dao Seeker. Becoming an elder of the ancient origin sect was not easy. Not only did they need to have great strength but also needed some other factors. For example, Lin Fei being a Dao Seeker would definitely attract the attention of the high-level figures in the ancient origin sect. After all, many Dao Seeker seniors have proven all Dao Seekers achieved great things in the future. The 8 great families went to build momentum while Lin Fei looked at the secret saber technique manuscripts sent by them. Although they were transcriptions, there wasn't much difference from the originals. Moreover, the number of secret saber technique manuscripts sent by the 8 great families greatly exceeded Lin Fei's estimate. There were a total of 24 top-tier saber techniques. Almost every family contributed 3 top-tier saber techniques. One should know these were not ordinary saber techniques. They were saber techniques that could cultivate saber intent. Such saber techniques were rare and very valuable no matter where. If I can evolve all these saber techniques into saber momentum, then my saber momentum should be able to break through to transcendence. A strange light flashed in Lin Fei's eyes. Saber momentum is very unique. It doesn't require accumulation over time. Often a sudden insight could comprehend saber momentum, even directly leading to saber momentum perfection. If they can't have sudden insight, even after hundreds of years of hard cultivation, the saber momentum will not improve a bit. Lin Fei didn't need to comprehend saber momentum. His saber momentum took a different path from other martial artists. Other martial artists, most of them comprehend a type of saber momentum. Then they constantly comprehend this type of saber momentum, continuously evolve this kind of saber momentum, hoping to evolve this saber momentum to transcendence or even to perfection. But Lin Fei didn't take this path. He took the path of integrating saber momentum. He wanted to integrate a large amount of saber momentum and then be inclusive of all, reaching perfection. This method required Lin Fei to integrate various kinds of saber techniques. In order to comprehend various types of saber momentum, even the most talented martial artists had limited energy. No one could comprehend a top-tier saber technique in 1 or 2 days, or half a month, and evolved its saber momentum. That's simply impossible. But Lin Fei could. Because he didn't need to practice himself. Even the saber techniques didn't need him to comprehend himself. His saber techniques could all cultivate and evolve saber momentum by themselves. Of course, the prerequisite was that Lin Fei could attract these saber techniques. Let's begin. Lin Fei took a deep breath. Boom. In the next moment, Lin Fei released his saber momentum. A semi-transparent glow erupted from his body. Suddenly, the entire room was covered by this transparent glow. Lin Fei took a deep breath. Then he said calmly, I need more top-tier saber techniques to evolve my saber momentum. If you can fuse your perfection state saber techniques into my saber momentum on your own, I will definitely help you successfully evolve to the saber momentum. Having said that, Lin Fei quietly waited. These were all top-tier innate level saber techniques. All of them could cultivate saber intent, and the saber techniques that could cultivate saber intent all wanted to evolve saber momentum. Saber momentum was almost the highest achievement for these saber techniques. Therefore, Lin Fei didn't say much. Just these few sentences. He believed these saber techniques could all choose on their own. Sure enough, as soon as Lin Fei finished speaking, a system voice sounded in his mind. Heaven Earth 1 Saber / self-cultivated to perfection state wishes to integrate into your saber momentum. Shadow Slicing Saber, self-cultivated to perfection state wishes to integrate into your saber momentum. 9 Heaven / self-cultivated to perfection state wishes to integrate into your saber momentum. When Slicing Saber, self-cultivated to perfection state wishes to integrate into your saber momentum. One by one, the saber techniques were all integrated into Lin Fei's saber momentum. In the blink of an eye, all 24 top-tier innate level saber techniques chose to integrate into Lin Fei's saber momentum on their own. Now, Lin Fei's saber momentum had an additional 24 top-tier innate level saber techniques. Of course, this had no effect on Lin Fei's saber momentum for now. To improve the saber momentum, he had to integrate another saber momentum. And these saber techniques just integrated into the saber momentum but had not yet evolved saber momentum. Lin Fei also promised he would definitely help these saber techniques to evolve saber momentum. Only then could he attract so many saber techniques to integrate into his saber momentum. If Lin Fei did not fulfill his promise, then these saber techniques might go silent. They would not add any saber technique foundation to Lin Fei. Shoo! Lin Fei opened his eyes. With a thought, he retracted his saber momentum. Immediately, the glow that covered the entire room also instantly returned to Lin Fei's body. I need to help these saber techniques evolve their saber momentum, Lin Fei murmured in a low voice. To evolve saber momentum, the only way he knew now was to let these saber techniques fight against Foundation establishment level powerhouses. Even, they must kill those Foundation establishment level powerhouses. For example, when Lin Fei's saber techniques were able to evolve saber momentum, it was because Lin Fei had destroyed the 10 immortal gates, killing countless Foundation establishment true persons. Only then could those top-tier saber techniques evolve saber momentum. It might sound cruel, but it couldn't be more normal. And this was also the broad road. After all, sabers were inherently lethal weapons. From the moment the saber was born, the saber was used for killing. And the saber techniques were natural for killing as well. There was never a kind of saber technique. If the saber techniques in Lin Fei's saber momentum could each take a human form, they would definitely be ferocious and terrifying. So, if saber techniques want to improve, besides enlightenment, they must fight and kill. I need to kill Foundation establishment level powerhouses. A thought flashed through Lin Fei's mind. The ocean. In the vast ocean, there was a lack of everything. But there was no shortage of Foundation establishment level sea beasts. If he wanted to kill, go to the ocean. Under normal circumstances, the ocean was actually very dangerous for Foundation establishment true persons. But for Lin Fei, he had drifted at sea for several months. What danger had he not encountered? With the sky-reaching tower and saber momentum, as long as he didn't provoke some very powerful or surpassing the Foundation establishment level sea beasts, then he wouldn't be in danger. So, Lin Fei got up. He left the Shangguan family and turned into a streak of light, flying toward the ocean. At this moment, the sea was surging, especially in the deep sea far away from Fairy Mist Island. There lurked many terrifying sea beasts. Boom! Lin Fei's saber momentum exploded in an instant. In a flash, it enveloped an area of 10 miles. This was not the limit of Lin Fei's saber momentum, but that was enough. Roar! Under the suppression of Lin Fei's saber momentum, one after another, sea beasts emerged, showing their huge heads. They were emanating terrifying auras, roaring furiously at Lin Fei. Go! Lin Fei flicked his finger. Immediately, streaks of saber energy flew out. They quickly transformed into a giant saber. Then, the saber intent burst forth. These were the 24 saber techniques that Lin Fei had just integrated into his saber momentum. Now, they all transformed into heavenly sabers, fighting with those sea beasts. 1, 2, 3. In the sea area of 10 miles, there were actually 8 sea beasts. And without exception, all were at the Foundation establishment level. But Lin Fei seemed very calm. His saber momentum kept suppressing these sea beasts. In the battle with the sea beasts, the saber intent of the saber techniques kept rising. Lin Fei was using these sea beasts to temper his saber techniques. Moreover, the speed was very fast. Beginner, mastery, transcendence, perfection. When the saber intent of a saber technique reached perfection, it could no longer be improved. Because it faced the evolution into saber momentum. Therefore, it needed an opportunity. And this opportunity was to kill sea beasts. Slash. With the suppression of Lin Fei's saber momentum, helping these saber techniques to kill sea beasts was a breeze. Splat. One after another, sea beasts were killed by the saber techniques. Afterward, those saber techniques successfully evolved into saber momentum. Your Heaven Earth 1 saber slash, excited after slaying a Foundation establishment sea beast, has evolved into saber momentum. Your Shadow Slicing saber, excited after slaying a Foundation establishment sea beast, has evolved into saber momentum. Your 9 Heaven slash, excited after slaying a Foundation establishment sea beast, has evolved into saber momentum. Your wind-slicing saber, excited after slaying a Foundation establishment sea beast, has evolved into saber momentum. All 24 saber techniques had evolved into saber momentum. Fuse. The next moment, Lin Fei did not hesitate. He immediately started the fusion of saber momentum. Originally, Lin Fei's progress in cultivating saber momentum had reached 10%. And now, after fusing 24 saber momenta, Lin Fei's progress in cultivating saber momentum began to advance by leaps and bounds. 20%, 40%, 60%, 80%, 100%. When the progress of cultivating saber momentum reached 100%, Lin Fei's saber momentum started shaking violently. Saber momentum transcendence. At this moment, Lin Fei was overjoyed. He immediately knew his saber momentum has transformed. It had finally reached transcendence. Chapter 208. The 8 Great Families Rally, the Tao Seeker shocks ancient origin sect. Transcendence. Lin Fei was sensing his saber momentum. Transcendent saber momentum was significantly different from the mastery stage. The glow of the saber momentum appeared more substantial. The saber momentum might just be a process of turning from the virtual to the real. As to when it would completely become real, Lin Fei was not sure. Transcendent saber momentum made Lin Fei's saber essence even more terrifying. With the boost of saber momentum, the power of Lin Fei's saber essence was multiplied. Under saber momentum, even a thread of Lin Fei's saber essence could possess the terrifying power of splitting mountains and rivers. As for the saber momentum itself, its suppression of enemies had increased several times. Perhaps an average Foundation establishment true person or an average martial sage could only exert half of their strength under the suppression of Lin Fei's saber momentum. It's quite possible that they couldn't even exert half of it. This was the horror of saber momentum. A martial sage with and without saber momentum was on completely different levels. System. Lin Fei brought up the system panel. Host, Lin Fei. Martial Realm, Early Martial Saint. Saber Momentum, Transcendence, Progress 0%. On Lin Fei's system panel now, things like boxing techniques and lightness techniques had disappeared. It had been extremely simplified. This was intentional on Lin Fei's part. After all, things like boxing techniques and boxing intent were not of much significance to Lin Fei after he had evolved the saber momentum. What boxing intent can do, saber momentum can do as well. As for lightness techniques, Lin Fei had saber momentum. As long as it's within the range of his saber momentum, Lin Fei's moving and dodging would be at the top level. Lightness techniques had temporarily lost their relevance. Besides, when he reached the ancient origin sect, there would be better lightness techniques. If necessary, he would choose more powerful lightness techniques then. What Lin Fei paid the most attention to was his saber momentum. The progress bar behind it was surprisingly at 0. In fact, Lin Fei had evolved 24 kinds of saber momentum. Each fusion of saber momentum increased the cultivation progress by 5%. In theory, Lin Fei's saber momentum reaching transcendence would only require another 18 saber momenta. After all, Lin Fei's saber momentum already had a 10% cultivation progress. But now, after Lin Fei fused all 24 saber momenta, the cultivation progress remained at 0 even after his saber momentum reached transcendence. This could only explain one thing. After Lin Fei's saber momentum reached transcendence, fusing with the saber momentum evolved from those top-tier innate saber techniques could no longer increase the cultivation progress. This was just like Lin Fei integrating those basic saber techniques to increase his saber intent in the past. After enhancing the saber intent, no matter how many basic saber techniques were fused, they couldn't increase the saber foundation anymore. The same went for saber momentum. Once saber momentum transcended, the saber momentum evolved from the innate level saber techniques might not be of much use. Unless there was some martial sage level saber techniques. Lin Fei didn't think too much. He glanced at the sea area, which had a strong smell of blood. This might attract even more terrifying sea beasts. Therefore, Lin Fei didn't linger any longer. Let's go back. Then, Lin Fei instantly transformed into a stream of light, heading back towards Fairy Mist Island. Qianqi country, where martial arts were supreme. Qianqi country had been in existence for over 10,000 years. Of course, it wasn't that Qianqi country was special, capable of being passed down for over 10,000 years. It was because Ancient Origin sect was backing Qianqi country. Ancient Origin sect had been established for over 10,000 years as well. Unlike some other sects that directly control their territories, the Ancient Origin sect established Qianqi country to govern its vast territory. All the Ancient Origin sect needed to do was control Qianqi country. Everyone in Qianqi country was from Ancient Origin sect. Even in the entire Qianqi country, almost all martial artists had intricate connections with Ancient Origin sect. Although Qianqi country didn't ban Qi cultivators, there were very few of them. After all, ambitious Qi cultivators would go to the vast ancient continent and other places. Those areas were controlled by immortal sects and were more convenient for immortal cultivators. At this moment, Ancient Origin City, located at the foot of the Ancient Origin Sect mountain, had become very lively. Because Ancient Origin Sect was recruiting disciples again. Ancient Origin Sect's philosophy was that all rivers run into the sea, leading to the same goal through different paths. Therefore, whether they were commoners, martial families, or the nobility of Qianqi country, they all had the chance to join Ancient Origin Sect. However, there was a special case to it. The nobility and children of martial families could use recommendation slots to directly enter the outer sect. As for the children of commoners, they had to pass layers of assessment before they had the chance to join the outer sect. The number of disciples in the outer sect of the Ancient Origin sect was extremely large, amounting to hundreds of thousands. A large number of disciples were eliminated from the outer sect each year. The outer sect was in competition at all times. The path of martial arts was unlike the path of immortality. Martial arts were like rowing against the current. If you don't advance, you retreat. Therefore, a terrifying competition must be maintained. Once an outer sect disciple reached the innate realm, they could be promoted to the inner sect and become an inner sect disciple. As for martial saints, they were the true disciples. The real foundation of the Ancient Origin sect was the true disciples. Each of them was a powerful martial saint. If a martial saint from the outside world wanted to reach the peak of martial arts, they could also join Ancient Origin sect. However, they would also need to compete. And it could only be done by some of the affiliated forces of the Ancient Origin sect, using recommendation slots to participate in Ancient Origin sect's competition. These beginner martial saints, once selected into Ancient Origin sect, would immediately become elders of the outer sect. Their status was only slightly lower than that of the true disciples. But that was just some difference in resource allocation. In fact, in terms of identity, the status of outer sect elders and true disciples was equal. Even if they stayed in Ancient Origin sect for a long time, they might become inner sect elders. Then they would truly become the core of the Ancient Origin sect. Lin Fei, Shen Liangxin, and Shanguan Feiyun arrived in Ancient Origin City. In Ancient Origin City, top-notch geniuses appeared from time to time. Carrying a huge genius aura, they appeared in Ancient Origin City, receiving the admiration of many martial artists. That's little divine dragon, Liu Xuan, right? This little divine dragon is not simple. He's only 16 this year and has already comprehended sword intent. He's a peerless genius in swordsmanship. Although he's only in the acquired realm since Little Divine Dragon has understood sword intent, he's most likely going to be promoted to the inner sect, becoming an inner sect disciple. Little Divine Dragon doesn't come from a big martial family. He's just an ordinary commoner, but his talent in swordsmanship is outstanding. Many people were discussing Little Divine Dragon, Liu Xuan. Even Lin Fei, upon hearing this, took a few more looks at Liu Zhuan. Liu Zhuan had a cold demeanor and remained unflustered. Although he was young, he was very calm. Under the praise of everyone, he remained calm. Being in the acquired realm and understanding sword intent, that's absolutely top-notch genius. Lin Fei had also understood saber intent in the acquired realm back then, which allowed him to kill high-level chi condensation cultivators. And Lin Fei was very clear. The reason he understood saber intent was that his saber technique was very promising. The saber technique had understood saber intent on its own. However, Liu Zhuan was different. He comprehended saber intent based on his swordsmanship talent. Moreover, he was even younger than Lin Fei when he comprehended saber intent. Seeing Lin Fei's interest in little divine dragon Liu Zhuan, Shangguan Feiyun said with a smile, "Seniors, every year there are top-notch talents like little divine dragon Liu Zhuan. They don't hide their talents at all. On the contrary, they publicize it. Because in ancient origin sect, the more talented you are, the more resources you can get. So, every time ancient origin sect begins to accept disciples, a large number of geniuses emerge. It's all to get the attention of the ancient origin sect. Now, seniors, you should understand why our 8 major families have spent a huge price to create momentum for you, right?" Both Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin understood. In this ancient continent, in this ancient origin sect, things seemed to be quite different from Great Chan. Great Chan had chi cultivators, dynasties, and other sects. If one's talent was too dazzling, they might face various unpredictable events. But ancient origin sect was different. In Qianqi country, ancient origin sect was supreme, suppressing everything. Ancient origin sect hoped that more people with good martial arts talents would appear. Anyone who dared to attack the disciples of the ancient origin sect would undoubtedly die. "So, how is the momentum you created?" Lin Fei asked. "He, seniors," Shangguan Feiyun responded. "Although our 8 major families have declined for a long time, some connections still exist. Moreover, you two are Dao seekers. Just the words Dao seeker are enough to attract the attention of the ancient origin sect. However, when the mountain gate opens later, no matter what, you two must try your best to create the greatest momentum. Even better if you could create a sensation throughout the venue and shake the ancient origin sect, that would be the best. Especially Senior Lin. I believe that Senior Lin can definitely shake the entire ancient origin sect." There was a trace of eagerness in Shangguan Feiyun's eyes as he looked at Lin Fei. At this time, a figure suddenly appeared in the void. This figure walked step by step to the sky above ancient origin sect. His gaze swept across ancient origin city. Then, he shouted loudly, "Where are the Dao seekers from Fairy Mist Island?" Boon. Immediately, all the martial artists in ancient origin city were greatly shocked. "Dao seekers? Are there really Dao seekers on Fairy Mist Island? Seekers have not appeared for hundreds of years. The seekers who appeared before were all Foundation establishment true persons. This time Dao Seeker is finally one of our martial artists. I heard it's 2 powerful martial saints." Shangguan Feiyun hurriedly said to Lin Fei, "Senior Lin, Senior Shen, this is the benefit of the momentum we created. Both of you go quickly." Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin looked at each other and nodded. Then they took a stride and directly arrived in the void. Chapter 209. The saber momentum emerges, hundreds of martial saints suppressed within a 10-mile radius. Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin moved steadily onward, each step echoing like the silent tread of an invisible staircase. Traveling through the vast emptiness, they trod upon thin air and arrived in front of the martial saint of the ancient origin sect. "We too are Dao seekers from Fairy Mist Island," Lin Fei declared with tranquility. Even when facing the dignified martial saint of the ancient origin sect, he neither groveled nor acted pretentiously. After all, the figure before him was just a martial saint. And so was Lin Fei. What a good poise! The ancient origin sect's martial sate gave Lin Fei an appraising glance. His aura was not something one could easily endure. Lin Fei and Shen Liangson managed to stride toward him step by step. This was not something an ordinary martial sate could achieve. They were indeed the rare seekers seen only once in centuries. Tao seekers are known for their steadfast spirits and wills, promising remarkable achievements in the future. However, that's all later. First, you must pass our ancient origin sect's assessment, successfully join us as outer elders, and then you will have the chance to ascend to the pinnacle of martial arts. What is the assessment? Lin Fei queried further. No rush. Subsequently, the martial saint of the ancient origin sect called out to the crowd below, Dragon Hidden Mountain, Martial Saint Lu Xuan. Following this, a man garbed in black emerged from the crowd, his entire demeanor chilly and detached. Lu Xuan pays his respects to the envoy Gu. The black-robed man was none other than Lu Xuan, a martial saint. Lin Fei had heard this name in the ancient origin city. It was said that Lu Xuan came recommended by Dragon Hidden Mountain, having once vanquished 38 martial saints in succession, among whom were top-tier martial saints. This was a testament to his prowess. Therefore, Dragon Hidden Mountain had made a show of him, ensuring the higher echelons of the ancient origin sect knew of Lu Xuan. The purpose of this spectacle was exactly this, to make the ancient origin sect take notice. Cold Water Pavilion, Yin Wuming. Great Snow Mountain, Shiazongchen. Red Maple Manor, Jiao Kanglon. The ancient origin sect's martial sate called out a dozen more names, all of whom were currently enjoying considerable fame within ancient origin city. In truth, all of this was merely to create a sensation. These martial saints' respective backers had expended immense resources and leveraged vast networks for this spectacle. Otherwise, how would the higher-ups of the ancient origin sect know the names of these martial saints? Although the martial saints were powerful, they were not yet within the sights of the ancient origin sect's upper echelons. These 10 martial saints were all eyeing each other. After all, there were limited spots within the ancient origin sect. They were competitors. Of course, these were the famous ones, known to the ancient origin sect's higher-ups. There were still some martial saints who were not known to the upper echelons of the ancient origin sect, but who had recommendations. There were quite a few of them. I trust your backers have mentioned this. Once you create a sensation and catch the eyes of my ancient origin sect's upper echelons, then, upon passing the assessment, the upper echelons of the ancient origin sect will bestow various rewards. Of course, the premise is that you have to pass the ancient origin sect's assessment. Come with me. Thus, Lin Fei and the others, following the martial saint of the ancient origin sect, arrived at the foot of the ancient origin sect's mountain. Accompanying Lin Fei and the others were actually as many as hundreds of martial saints. With so many martial saints vying for spots, though the ancient origin sect's quota was not fixed, it typically accepted only around a dozen. If the ancient origin sect was unsatisfied, it would only admit a few. The most outrageous occurrence was once when none were accepted. Dere asked, "What is the content of this assessment?" A martial saint inquired. Each time, the content of the ancient origin sect's assessment was different. Thus, there wasn't any reference point. However, one thing was certain. The strength of the martial saints was extremely important. After all, these martial saints, unlike the disciples, upon joining the ancient origin sect, would directly become outer elders. Naturally, the stronger they were, the better. As for potential, having become martial saints, potential no longer mattered. What mattered was strength. Hence, typically each assessment would see the strongest martial saints able to join the ancient origin sect and become outer elders. This was clear to all the martial saints. This was also the reason why people from the 8 great families initially wished to spar with Lin Fei. They wanted to gauge Lin Fei's approximate strength, so they wouldn't invest heavily only to find out that the strength of Lin Fei and Shen Liangxin was too weak to join the ancient origin sect. That would mean a major loss for the 8 great families. The martial saint of the ancient origin sect looked at Lin Fei and the others, a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. The content of this assessment is simple. Do you see the gate of the ancient origin sect? We are currently at the foot of the ancient origin sect's mountain. Your task is to reach the gate of the ancient origin sect as quickly as possible. The first batch of martial saints to reach there will be able to join the ancient origin sect smoothly and become the elders of the ancient origin sect. Is it that simple? Some of the martial saints seemed somewhat incredulous. Is it really simple? The martial saint of the ancient origin sect looked amused but didn't answer. At this moment, a black-robed Lu Zhuan coldly asked, "Can we kill?" Lu Zhuan's words tightened the hearts of the many martial saints. Indeed, those who first reached the gate of the ancient origin sect could smoothly join it. Actually, this did not refer to speed, but to ranking. Just getting to the mountain before their opponents was enough. If they killed all the martial saints at the foot of the mountain, they would certainly be able to join the ancient origin sect. All present were martial saints. All had experienced slaughters and walked their paths through battle. Could they not understand Lu Zhuan's meaning? Even Shen Liangxin was momentarily moved to kill. However, the martial saint of the ancient origin sect regretfully shook his head and said, "Unfortunately, you can't kill." Can't kill? But you didn't say we can't hurt others. The eyes of the crowd brightened. They immediately understood the meaning of the ancient origin sect's martial saint. Can't kill, but he didn't say they couldn't injure. Evidently, fighting was inevitable. This scene was simply too cruel. Over 100 martial saints. What a grand lineup. These hundreds of martial saints had to pit their wits and courage against each other, fighting amongst themselves just for a chance to join the ancient origin sect. The ancient origin sect was conducting the martial saint assessment first. Therefore, those disciples at the foot of the mountain who wanted to join the outer or even the inner sect of the ancient origin sect were also watching the scene unfold. Perhaps their hearts were shocked. Even at the martial saint level, they had to join the ancient origin sect in such a cruel manner. Now, their chances of joining the outer sect of the ancient origin sect seemed much easier than the martial saints. If they missed this opportunity, they wouldn't need to consider becoming martial saints and joining the ancient origin sect in the future. The probability of that was infinitesimal. I wonder who will be the first to climb to the top of the mountain. Maybe it will be martial saint Lu Zhuan. These 2 Tao Seekers look a bit ordinary. They say Tao Seekers have strong willpower, but their strength might not necessarily be the strongest. Foundation establishment Tao Seekers do occasionally appear. Those Tao Seekers are highly valued by the immortal sects. The ancient origin sect certainly values Tao Seekers, but whether they can pass the assessment is still a big question. Many disciples temporarily didn't need to take the assessment. So, they were all discussing these martial saints. After all, it was rare to see these martial saints fighting so fiercely for a few spots under normal circumstances. Brother Shen, you go first. I'll stay at the foot of the mountain to ensure everything goes smoothly. Suddenly, Lin Fei said to Shen Liangxin. Shen Liangxin understood immediately. Lin Fei was going to stop the other martial saints. Shen Liangxin understood. Naturally, the others did too. Lu Zhuan, Yin Wuming, and the others remained expressionless. However, a hint of murderous intent flashed through their eyes. Although they were not allowed to kill, it didn't mean they couldn't injure others. Injuring a martial saint was much easier than killing one. When it came to the opportunity to enter the ancient origin sect, they would strike against anyone who dared to obstruct them. Even the martial saint of the ancient origin sect seemed a bit surprised. He looked up and down at Lin Fei, a hint of doubt in his eyes. However, no matter what the doubt was, he would soon know. All right, let's begin. With the order from the ancient origin sect's martial sate, the competition started. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, Shen Liangxin rushed toward the mountain almost immediately. He was well aware of Lin Fei's strength. Therefore, Shen Liangxin wouldn't distract Lin Fei. Anyway, no matter what, if Lin Fei wanted to ascend the mountain, Shen Liangxin believed that no one could stop him. So, he didn't beat around the bush. Without any hesitation, he activated the true essence within his body and rushed towards the mountain at the fastest speed. However, as fast as Shen Liangxin was, Yin Wuming, Lu Xuan, and the other martial saints seemed to be even faster. They moved ahead even faster than Shen Liangxin at first. A gleam flashed across Lin Fei's eyes. I didn't allow you to move. In the next moment, without any hesitation, Lin Fei's saber momentum exploded. Boom! A circle of white light erupted from Lin Fei's body. Instantly, it covered the area beneath the mountain of the ancient origin sect. Hundreds of martial saints, even including the martial artists who were preparing to participate in the ancient origin sect outer disciple assessment, were all enveloped by Lin Fei's saber momentum. Suddenly, whether they were ordinary martial artists or martial saints, they all felt as if they were stuck in a swamp, finding it difficult to move. Even those martial saints felt as if they were carrying mountains on their backs. The weight made their whole bodies tremble. Even the martial saint of the ancient origin sect, who was originally high above and prepared to stand by and watch the show, at this moment, was also suppressed by Lin Fei's saber momentum. The entire area beneath the mountain of the ancient origin sect, within a radius of 10 miles, was suppressed by Lin Fei's saber momentum. For a moment, the entire area beneath the mountain fell silent, and one could hear a pin drop. Chapter 210. Transcendence saber momentum suppress martial saints. Lin Fei stood with his hands behind his back. He stood quietly at the foot of the mountain. He didn't move, and neither did the others. Because of the momentum they had created, they were being noticed by the high-ranking members of the ancient origin sect. Being noticed in itself was a testament to these martial saints' power. Perhaps each had their own special traits and trump cards. Every single one of them was a highly renowned individual. To rise from an ordinary martial artist to become a martial saint was undoubtedly extraordinary. Even so, at this moment, under the suppression of Lin Fei's saber momentum, everyone felt as if they had fallen into a swamp. Their bodies carried the weight of heavy mountains, trembling. Even the true essence within their bodies couldn't flow smoothly. They all stopped in their tracks. As for trying to force their way up, certainly it could be done. However, it would consume an enormous amount of true essence. If their true essence was exhausted, what would they do when they encountered attacks from other martial saints later? Therefore, for a while, these martial saints didn't move. Their eyes were all fixed on Lin Fei. They recognized Lin Fei. Dao Seeker Lin Fei. Now, because of the hype created by the 8 major families, his name was known far and wide. Only, they hadn't expected Dao Seeker Lin Fei was actually this terrifying. He had comprehended saber momentum. Saber momentum, this is saber momentum. Even if it's saber momentum, it won't trap me. Break. Ah. Break for me. Among these martial saints, there were still some fierce characters. For example, Lu Xuan, Yin Wuming, etc. Their true essence was indeed powerful. They tried to break free from Lin Fei's saber momentum. If it were before, when he had only mastered saber momentum, Lin Fei's saber momentum might not have been able to suppress these martial saints. But now, it was different. The transcendence of saber momentum wasn't a doubling or tripling of power, but a tenfold, dozens of times increase. Therefore, even if these martial saints tried their best to struggle, their efforts were in vain. As for the disciples at the foot of the mountain, they were even more terrified. Looking at Lin Fei, their eyes were a hint of fear and dread. Saber momentum evolved from the saber intent. Not only could it interfere with reality, but it could also deter the spirit. For these acquired martial artists, being suppressed by the saber momentum, even if Lin Fei's saber momentum didn't intentionally suppress them, just a little bit of the leaked power was enough to make them feel incredibly shocked and terrified. However, at the foot of the mountain, there was one exception. That was the martial saint of the ancient origin sect. Originally, this martial saint was merely supervising, or watching the excitement from the side. He was high above, detached from the world. But now, he was also suppressed by Lin Fei's saber momentum. Although there was a hint of surprise on his face, he seemed to have no fear or panic. Saber momentum, he actually comprehended saber momentum. Interesting. It seems the Tao Seeker truly lives up to his reputation. How could someone who managed to cross the vast sea from the other end be ordinary? But you have saber momentum, I have fist momentum. At this time, the martial saint of the ancient origin sect, a fierce light flashed in his eyes. Perhaps many people didn't understand his identity. He was a true disciple. In the ancient origin sect, his status was higher than that of the elders. Each direct disciple in the outside world could become the overlord of a region. All were terrifying martial saints standing tall and upright. And he was among the best of them. This time, he presided over the initiation ceremony out of interest. Unexpectedly, he encountered such an interesting martial saint like Lin Fei. As a dignified direct disciple, how could he be suppressed by Lin Fei's saber momentum? Boon. The martial saint of the ancient origin sect, originally bent slightly by Lin Fei's saber momentum, now, bit by bit, slowly straightened up. His body became upright again. At the same time, a circle of grey light radiated from the body of the ancient origin sect's martial saint. One circle after another, exuding an overbearing, fierce, utterly rigid, and masculine aura. Everyone seemed to see an incomparable fist as if it spanned across the void. This fist seemed to be able to destroy everything, crush everything. Fist momentum. No one expected that this martial saint of the ancient origin sect had actually comprehended fist momentum too. Fist momentum. I remember now, he is the true disciple of the ancient origin sect, the Fist Saint Jiu Men. What? He is Fist Saint Jiu Men. The Fist Saint Jiu Men who killed 3 top martial saints with one punch, shocking the entire Tianjin nation. Fist Saint Jiu Men, the true disciple of the ancient origin sect, is actually presiding over the ceremony. What a terrifying fist momentum! Is this the true disciple of the ancient origin sect? It's simply incredible. Why do I feel like Fist Saint Jiu Men's fist momentum seems a bit inferior to Tao Seeker Lin Fei's saber momentum? For a moment, the hearts of many people at the foot of the mountain were shocked. A true disciple of the ancient origin sect. Fist Saint Jiu Men. The combination of these two titles made everyone look at Jiu Men with newfound awe. Even Lin Fei's gaze at Jiu Men's fist momentum held a touch of surprise. But that was all. If he didn't move, then no one had the right to move under his saber momentum. Suppress. Lin Fei just spat out a single word. Suddenly, it seemed as if countless strands of saber intent in the void, covering the sky and the earth, pressuring towards the numerous martial saints. Third. Some of the martial saints flew into the void, preparing to walk on air, rushing to the top of the mountain at the fastest speed, but they were directly pressed by Lin Fei's saber momentum, causing them to fall to the ground. Even after falling to the ground, they had to desperately seek support from the ground with both hands, resisting the pressure of the saber momentum. As for Fist Saint Jiu Men, originally, he detached from the world. Even when Lin Fei displayed his saber momentum, he didn't take it seriously. He felt that once his fist momentum came out, he would be able to easily break free from Lin Fei's saber momentum. However, the expression on Jiu Men's face had become rigid. Even the smile on his face was gradually disappearing. because he found that when his fist momentum erupted, the circles of grey light were actually being compressed back. Yes, bit by bit, they were compressed back. Whether it's fist momentum or saber momentum, the smaller the range, the stronger the power. Now being suppressed back could only mean one thing. His fist momentum was inferior to Lin Fei's saber momentum. Moreover, Ji Yumeng himself felt even with the protection of fist momentum, under the cover of Lin Fei's saber momentum, he still felt as if he was surrounded by a mountain of sabers. Countless sabers were ready to fall at any time, cutting him into pieces. The competition between saber momentum and fist momentum didn't tolerate any deception. Strength is strength. Weakness is weakness. Clearly, Ji Yumeng's fist momentum was inferior to Lin Fei's saber momentum. Even, far inferior. The two were not even on the same level. Saber momentum. Transcendence. Ji Yumeng uttered each word slowly. At this moment, his expression had become extremely solemn. He finally understood Lin Fei's saber momentum had reached transcendence. And him. Fist momentum at the mastery level. Even among the true disciples of the ancient origin sect, fist momentum at the mastery level could be considered an outstanding achievement. That's why he could always appear so relaxed. But Lin Fei's was transcendence level saber momentum. Only at this time did Ji Yumeng truly understand what Dao Seeker really meant. Why every Dao Seeker ultimately achieved no small feat just based on Lin Fei's understanding of the transcendence level saber momentum, he could make the entire ancient origin sect take him seriously. Thinking of this, Ji Yumeng withdrew his fist momentum. He said to Lin Fei, withdraw your saber momentum. Your companion has reached the top of the mountain. As for you, there's no need to compete with them for the quota. It's their misfortune to compete with you for the quota. With you here, they can't even move. Won't they be wiped out by then? You can directly enter the ancient origin sect and become an outer elder. The other martial saints were also all taken aback. Their eyes were filled with shock. Lin Fei was going to directly enter the ancient origin sect. He didn't even have to take the examination. Many martial saints, who were proud and arrogant, thought they were not inferior to anyone. But they were easily suppressed by this Dao Seeker alone. Hundreds of martial saints, not one could move. Their pride was shattered by Lin Fei. This was a Dao Seeker who truly lived up to his reputation.